there, this is Grandma Rhonda Reads, and today I'm going to read a fairy tale story by Hans Christian Andersen called The Nightingale. In China, as you well know, the emperor is Chinese, and all around him are Chinese also. But what I am about to relate happened many years ago, and even on that account, it's more important that you should hear the story now before it's forgotten. The emperor's palace was the most magnificent palace in the world. It was made entirely of fine porcelain, exceedingly costly, but at the same time so brittle that it was dangerous even to touch it. The most beautiful flowers were to be seen in the garden, and to the most splendid of all the flowers little silver bells were fastened, in order that their tinkling might prevent anyone from passing by without noticing them. Yes, everything in the emperor's garden was exceedingly well arranged, and the garden extended so far that even the gardener did not know the end of it. Whoever walked beyond it, however, came to a beautiful woods with very high trees, and beyond that to the sea. The woods went down right to the sea, which was very deep and blue. Large ships would sail close under the branches, and among the branches lived a nightingale, a bird who sang so sweetly that even the fishermen who heard it would pause what they were doing to listen. "Oh, how pretty that is," the fisherman would say. And then he'd have to go to work, and he'd forget about the bird until the next night. Again, the nightingale would sing, and the fisherman would listen and say, "Oh, how pretty that is." Travelers came from all over parts of the world to the emperor's city, and they admired the city, the palace, and the garden. But if they heard the nightingale, they all said, "This is the best." And they talked about her after they went home, and smart men wrote books about the city, the palace, the garden, and they didn't forget to include the nightingale. She was praised above everything else, and poets wrote the most beautiful verses about the nightingale in the woods near the sea. Well, those books went around the world, and one of them at last reached the emperor. He was sitting in his golden armchair. He read and nodded his head about the splendid descriptions of the city and the palace and the garden, because that pleased him. But the book ended with, "The nightingale is the best of all." "What in the world is this?" said the emperor. "A nightingale? I do not know it at all. Can there be such a bird in my empire, in my garden even, without my having ever heard of it? Truly, one must learn something from books, but I want to see the nightingale." So he called his cavalier. That's a gentleman in waiting. Now the cavalier was a grand person. No one was better or higher in rank than him. If one could venture to ask him a question, his only answer was, "Pfft," which has no particular meaning. The emperor said, "There is said to be a very remarkable bird here called the nightingale. Her song, they say, is worth more than anything else in all my realm. Why has no one ever told me of her?" The cavalier said, "Well, I've never heard about her before. She's not present here at the court." The emperor said, "I wish her to come and sing before me this evening. The whole world knows what I have, and I do not know it myself." The cavalier was curious. "I've never heard before about her either, but I will seek her and I will find her." But where was she to be found? The cavalier ran up one flight of steps and down another, through halls, through passages, but no one that he met had ever heard of the nightingale. And the cavalier returned to the emperor and said, "It must certainly be just an invention some man wrote about in his book. Your imperial majesty must not believe everything that is written in books. Some of it can be pure invention." And the emperor said, "But the book in which I have read it was sent to me by the high and mighty emperor of Japan, and therefore it cannot be untrue. I wish to hear the nightingale. She must be here this evening, and if she does not come, after supper the whole court will be flogged." "As you wish," said the cavalier, and again he ran upstairs and downstairs and through the halls and through the passages, and half the court ran with him. But no one knew about the nightingale. But they were all afraid of being flogged if the nightingale was not brought. Many were the questions that were asked about the wonderful nightingale that the whole world talked about, but about no one in the court knew anything. At last they met a poor little girl in the kitchen, and she said, "Oh, yes, the nightingale. I know her very well. Oh, how she can sing! Every evening I carry the fragments left at table to my poor sick mother. She lives by the seashore, and when I am coming back and want to stay and rest a little in the woods, I hear the nightingale sing, and it brings tears to my eyes. It's just as if my mother kissed me." "Little kitchen maid," said the cavalier, "I will procure for you a big appointment in the kitchen, together with permission to see His Majesty the Emperor dine, if you will take us to the nightingale, for she is expected at court this evening." So they all went to the woods where the nightingale was accustomed to sing, and half the court went with them, while on the way a cow began to moo. "Oh," said the court pages, "now we have her. It is certainly an extraordinary voice for so small an animal. Surely I have heard it somewhere before." "No," said the little girl, "those are cows you hear mooing. We are still far from the place where the nightingale is." The frogs were now croaking in the pond. "That is fabulous," said the chief court preacher. "Now I hear her. It sounds just like church bells." "No," the little kitchen maid said, "those are frogs. But now I think we will soon hear her. We are close." Then began the nightingale to sing. "There she is," said the little girl. "Listen, listen, there she sits," and she pointed to a little gray bird up in the branches. "Is it possible?" said the cavalier. "I should not have thought it. How simple she looks. She must certainly have changed color at the sight of so many distinguished people coming to see her." "Little nightingale," called out the kitchen maid, "our gracious emperor wishes you to sing something to him." And the nightingale said, "With the greatest pleasure." And she sang in such a manner that it was delightful to hear. "It sounds like glass bells," said the cavalier, "and look at her little throat, how it moves. It is amazing that we should never have heard her before. She will give great success at the court." The nightingale asked, "Shall I sing again to the emperor?" For she thought the emperor was among them. "Most excellent nightingale," said the cavalier, "I have the honor to invite you to a court festival, which is to take place this evening. There His Imperial Majesty will be enchanted with your delightful song." "My song would sound far better among the green trees," said the nightingale. However, she followed willingly when she heard that the emperor wished it. There was trimming and polishing at the palace. The walls and floors were cleaned. The loveliest flowers were brought in. In the midst of the grand hall where the emperor sat, a golden perch was erected on which the nightingale was to sit. The whole court was present, and the little kitchen maid received permission to stand behind the door, for she had now actually the rank and title of maid of the kitchen. All were dressed out in their finest clothes, and all eyes were fixed upon the little gray bird, to whom the emperor nodded as a signal for her to begin. The nightingale sang so sweetly that tears came into the emperor's eyes. Tears rolled down his cheeks, and the nightingale sang even more sweetly and touched the hearts of all who heard her. And the emperor was so merry that he said the nightingale should have golden slippers and wear them around her neck. But the nightingale thanked him and said she was already sufficiently rewarded. She said, I have seen tears in the emperor's eyes. That is the greatest reward I can have. The tears of an emperor have a particular value. Heaven knows I am sufficiently rewarded." And then she sang again with her sweet, lovely voice. And the ladies present said, "That is the sweetest music we've ever heard." And they put water in their mouths and tried to move their throats as she did when they spoke. They thought they could become nightingales too. Indeed, everyone present declared that they were quite happy. It was such a great thing to see. Yes, indeed, the nightingale's success was complete. She was now to remain at court, to have her own cage, with permission to fly out twice in the day and once in the night. 12 people attended her. All the city was talking of the wonderful bird, and when two persons met, one would only say night and the other gale. And then they sighed and understood each other perfectly. Indeed, 11 of the children of the citizens were named after the nightingale, but none of them had her music in their throats. One day, a large parcel arrived for the emperor, on which was written Nightingale. "Here we have another new book about our far-famed friend," said the emperor. But it was not a book. It was a little golden machine lying in a box, an artificial nightingale, which was intended to look like the living one, but was covered all over with diamonds and rubies and sapphires. When this mechanical bird was wound up, it could sing one of the tunes that the real nightingale sang, and its tail, all glittering with silver and gold, went up and down all the time. A little band was fastened around its neck, on which was written, "The nightingale of the Emperor of China is poor compared with the nightingale of the Emperor of Japan," which is what the mechanical nightingale was from. And the artist who had brought the bird obtained the title of Chief Imperial Nightingale Bringer. "Now they will sing together. We will have a duet." And so they did sing together. But it didn't succeed, for the real nightingale sang in her own way, and the artificial bird produced its tones by wheels. "It's not his fault," said the artist. "He keeps exact time and quite according to method. So the artificial bird must now sing alone. He was quite as successful as the real nightingale, and then he was so much prettier to look at. His plumage sparkled with jewels. 33 times he sang one and the same tune. Always the same tune, over and over. Everyone would willingly have heard him again. However, the emperor now wished the real nightingale should sing something. But where was she? No one had seen that she had flown out of the open window, flown away to her own green woods. "What is the meaning of this?" said the emperor, and all the people at court spoke badly about the nightingale and called her a most ungrateful creature. "Anyway," they said, "we have the best bird anyway," referring to the mechanical. And for the 4th and 30th time they heard the same tune, but still they did not quite know it because it was so difficult. The artist praised the bird inordinately. Indeed, he declared it was superior to the real nightingale, not only in its appearance, all sparkling with diamonds, but also in every other way. "For see, my noble lords, his imperial majesty especially, with the real nightingale, one could never know what song was coming. But everything is settled with the artificial nightingale. He will sing it this one way and no other. He can be taken to pieces, and the works can be shown where the wheels lie and how they move and how one follows another." "True," said everybody, and the artist received permission to show the bird to the people on the following Sunday. "They too shall hear him sing," the emperor said. So they heard him and were well pleased. But the fishermen, who had heard the real nightingale, said, "The artificial one sounds pretty, almost like the real bird, but there's something wanting. I do not know what." The real nightingale was banished from the court, and the artificial bird took his place on a silken cushion close to the emperor's bed. He received presents of gold and stones, and he obtained the rank and title of High Imperial Dessert Singer. And therefore his place was number 1 on the left side, for the emperor thought that the side where the heart was situated must be the most honorable. And the heart is situated on the left side of an emperor, as well as the rest of us folks. And the artist wrote 25 volumes about the artificial bird, with the longest one with most difficult words that were found in the Chinese language. So, of course, because the words were difficult, everyone could not read them and understand them, although they pretended to understand because they didn't want flogged. Thus it went on for a year. The emperor, the court, and all the Chinese learned every note of the artificial bird's song by heart. And that was probably the reason they enjoyed it, because now they could sing with him. But one evening, when the bird was in full voice and the emperor lay in his bed and listened, suddenly there was a noise. Bang! Clank! Came from inside the bird. And then a whir! Whir! And all the wheels that were running about stopped, and the music stopped. The emperor jumped quickly out of bed and had his chief physician called, but of what use would he be? Then a clockmaker was fetched, and at last, after a great deal of discussion and consultation, the bird was in some measure put to rights again. But the clockmaker said he must be spared from singing too much, for the pegs were worn out, and it was impossible to renew them so that the music would be correct. There was great sorrow, for now the artificial bird was allowed to sing only once a year, and even then it had difficulty. When 5 years had passed away, a great illness visited the whole empire. For in their hearts the people thought highly of the emperor, and now he was ill, and it was reported that he was not going to live. A new emperor had already been chosen. The people stood in the street outside the palace and asked the cavalier, "How is the old emperor?" "Not good," said the cavalier, and shook his head. Cold and pale, the emperor lay in his magnificent bed. All the court believed he was already dead, and everyone had hastened to go and greet the new emperor. But the emperor was not dead. Stiff and pale, he lay in his splendid bed, with the long velvet curtains and the long gold tassels. A window was opened, and the moon shone down on the emperor and the artificial bird. The poor emperor could scarcely breathe. It appeared to him as though something was sitting on his chest. He opened his eyes, and he saw that it was Death. Death had come into the emperor's room and stolen his crown and his golden scepter. And from under the folds of the velvet hangings, strange-looking heads were seen peering forth, some with an expression absolutely hideous, and others with an extremely gentle and lovely expression. They were the bad and the good deeds of the emperor, and they were all fixing their eyes upon him, while death sat on his heart. The little heads would say, "Do you remember this? Do you remember that?" And they began reproaching him in such a manner that sweat broke out upon his forehead. "Stop it," said the emperor. "Music, music, the great Chinese drum," cried he. "Let me not hear what those things are saying." But they went on, and Death nodded his head at every word. "Music, music," cried the emperor. "Oh, dear little artificial bird, sing, I pray thee, sing. I have given you gold and precious stones. I even hung my golden slippers round your neck. Sing, little artificial bird, sing." But the bird was silent. There was no one there to wind him up. He could not sing without that. Death continued to stare at the emperor with his great hollow eyes, and everywhere it was still, fearfully still. All at once the sweetest song was heard from the window, and the little living nightingale was sitting on a branch outside. She had heard of her emperor's severe illness and had come to sing him of comfort and hope. She sang, and the ghostly forms became paler and paler. The blood flowed more and more quickly through the emperor's feeble limbs, and even Death listened to her and said, "Go on, little nightingale, go on." And the nightingale sang on. She sang of the quiet churchyard where white roses blossom, where the lilac sends forth its fragrance, and the fresh grass is watered with the tears of sorrowing people. Then Death was seized with a longing after his own garden, and like a cold white shadow, he flew out of the window. Thanks, thanks, said the emperor, thou heavenly little bird. I know you well. I had banished you from my realm, and now you have sung away those evil faces from my bed and death from my heart. How shall I reward you? You have already rewarded me, said the nightingale. I have seen tears in your eyes, as when I sang to you for the first time. Those I will never forget. They are jewels which do so much good to my heart. But sleep now, and wake fresh and healthy. I will sing you to sleep. And she sang, and the emperor fell into a sweet sleep. Oh, how soft and kindly was that sleep. The sun shone in at the window when he awoke, strong and healthy. Not one of his servants had returned, for they all believed he was dead. But the nightingale sat and sang. The emperor said, You shall always stay with me, and you shall always sing, whatever pleases you to sing. And the artificial bird I will break into 1,000 pieces. Do not so, said the nightingale. Truly the artificial bird has done what he could. Take care of him. I cannot stay in the palace, but let me come when I like. I will sit on the branches close to the window in the evening, and I will sing to you, and I will make you happy. I will sing to you of joy. I will sing to you of sorrow. I will sing to you of all that is good or bad, whatever is concealed from you that you don't know about. I will sing to you of the little minstrel at the fisherman's hut, to the peasant's cottage, to all who far distant from you and from your court. I love your heart more than your crown. I will come, I will sing, but you must promise me one thing. Everything, said the emperor, and now he stood in his imperial splendor, which he had put on himself, and held the scepter so heavy with gold in his hand. One thing I beg of you, the little nightingale said. Let no one know that you have a little bird who tells you everything. Then all will go well. And the nightingale flew away. The attendants came in to look at their dead emperor. But guess what? There he stood. And the emperor said, Good morning. The end. Thank you for coming and spending the time with me as I read this fairy tale. Goodbye, good night, sweet dreams.